Hello, everybody. Mark Schaftlein with you, and this is the Schaftlein Report. It's Tuesday's edition, and we're broadcasting from here in Southern California. And I want to welcome back my special guest from the National Championship state of Connecticut, Joe Visconti. That's 5 titles in 25 years. Happy to have you back with us today.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we do some things okay in Connecticut.
Like men's and women's basketball is one of them. I got to tell you, Joe, for all the talk of Duke, Kentucky, North Carolina, 5 titles in 25 years with 3 different head coaches. That's astounding. But having said that, let's get to the big news of the day, Joe. Look, you and I have talked about that this day could come at a certain point. Joe, we're here. The arraignment, the charges in court today, and Trump has called it the final battle. Joe, give us some perspective on the final battle.
Well, I was in Manhattan from last Friday till Sunday night and doing a photo shoot with my girlfriend and some other business. And, you know, the mood of the city, when you walk around and you talk to people, it isn't all as crazy lefty as you think. You know, there are people in New York that are like, wait a minute. Once you start bringing the police in, and minorities feeling like they've been run over by the cops and everything. Everybody, the mood in New York isn't what you may see on TV. It really is. Wait a minute. This is the politicization of the legal system. Everybody knows it, and not everybody's comfortable about it because they know this is a precedent that could happen in their daily lives.
Yeah. There's no question about it. According to reports, and again, we're not in the courtroom. He's going to be charged with 34 felonies. Now, Joe, all of these charges were misdemeanors. I mean, can you imagine charging an ex-president of the United States with a misdemeanor and then somehow trying to enhance it to bring it up to a Class E felony, which is the lowest one there is? A felony for falsifying corporate records of a privately held company?
Yeah,
Excuse me, Joe, that's insane.
You know, Dershowitz, everyone else, great lawyers and great minds have talked about this, and it's not something that we need to get into because we will know in a few minutes if there's any peekaboo hidden things. And they've been able to push this all on what you don't know, the old what you don't know, secrecy of grand jury, which isn't secret, as we can see with the leaks. Nothing is secret anymore if it has to do with Republicans or conservatives or Christians. We're just a different class of people. And I always remember, not to get religious on you, but I remember Jesus today. I've only come for my own. Huh? You know, wait a minute. There's more people out there that he didn't come for? I mean, what does that mean just in the big context of just 2 different or more than one type of people? And not that we're better than anybody else, but God, we're just the people that represent Christianity and conservative values are being treated just like this is Rome 34, 35, 20 AD. It's unbelievable. But I think this is going to all go away. They wanted a photo op. As you know, he could have Skyped this in. He chose not to. And rightfully so, because he did the right thing. He lives there. He's at home. He's been paying taxes there for 100 years. Well, wait a second. If you're going to turn the judicial system around, you need to get under the skin of the dragon. And that's exactly what he's doing right now to expose it. I can't think the Bar Association in New York, you got a lot of great lawyers in New York and the Northeast and Philadelphia. They cannot be happy with what they're seeing. The precedent it's trying to set is we can arrest anyone for anything. And it's that old Stalin cliche. If I show me the man, I'll show you the crime.
Show me the man,
and that's
I'll show you the crime.
Out.
Right.
And I'm glad the Republicans and the Trump people are, like myself also, are just level-headed and watching what's happening. I do tell you one thing though, if they tried to keep him and put him in Rikers or something tonight,
no, they're not going to do. They're not going to do that.
Yeah, but if they tried to do that, that would be triggering his base. But I'm pretty sure it's all been worked out, and this case isn't going anywhere. It may have to go to the U.S. Supreme Court to get thrown out because this is how corrupt New York is, and even the New York Supreme Court.
I mean, there's not going to be any mugshot. There's no cuffs. I mean, he's going into a side door. He is scheduled to be back in Mar-a-Lago to deliver a speech tonight. I don't know if that'll happen or not, but that is what the media is saying the game plan is. And again, this let's play it out. To take misdemeanors, Joe Visconti, and try to enhance them with something else. I mean, we're going to see what he comes up with, but this is a pure political. It's a political assassination, is what
it is. It is. And don't forget, Donald Trump has a permit to carry a pistol, a firearm in Manhattan. Okay, so they've got his fingerprints and Nick's background check and all that other stuff. So it's not like he's someone who's broken the law. And this is what they want to make it, because they've got Cohen and they picked up Manafort and Stone and a host of other people. They just want this to be a criminal enterprise when the Biden family is the criminal enterprise, which it's inevitable now.
Yeah.
It's inevitable that Biden and everything to do with it will be surfaced. And that's just why you're seeing this. Comer is going after Biden so hard at the state U.S. Capitol right now, so hard with the Treasury. He's just subpoenaed all the bank records for the Biden family, everyone. If they didn't pay their taxes on that money, and wherever that money went, whoever declared it, they're going to know it all. That's why this is happening right now, because they're caught. I doubt if the Hunter laptop and all the ingredients in it were not out, that this wouldn't happen. They're doing this for misdirection, and they're doing this to try to set a precedent in their own twisted way. They can't get out of the problem. And Hillary's been very quiet. She hasn't made a statement. She knows how close she could be. So it's hypocrisy at its greatest level. This is every American's going through this today. Every American's getting perp walked today for doing nothing wrong. And this is on Holy Tuesday, okay? Yeah. And I put up on my Facebook wall, like Jesus Christ, and he's not God or anything like that, but like Jesus Christ, he's being set up on phony charges and betrayed by a Judas Cohen right now during the Holy Week.
And a point of reference for our viewers and listeners, he's talking about Representative James Conner. He's the Republican for Kentucky who chairs the committee. So this isn't just some any guy. I mean, this guy has the subpoena power, and he is going after him directly. And I've noticed the same thing, Joe. The conspicuous silence of Joe Biden and the administration, I never expected to hear anything out of Hillary Clinton or Bill Clinton, because, Bill Clinton... Do you really want to open up Pandora's Epstein box? I mean, I don't think he does. But, I mean, there's greater ramifications here. And it does open up other politicians to this type of just insane persecution, not prosecution, of what they're doing to Donald Trump. And you mentioned some of Trump's allies, Roger Stone, Paul Manafort. We could go on and on. I mean, Joe, the truth of the matter is, Joe Visconti's in Connecticut today because you didn't need to be in New York because you were, reporting on Schaftlein report on January 6th a couple of years ago. So, no, I'm glad.
I really lost my right to actually, it's loss of a right to actually go to New York. I would love to stand here today, but I didn't do anything wrong. But then now we're in a state of affairs in our country where if you were there, even outside or whatever, you're now on a list. My phone, I'm sure, I've been visited by the FBI. My phone sure will show up on a grid. So if I was down at the courthouse with support with a sign, that's my constitutional right to do, I'm going to show up on the grid somewhere. Do I fear it? No, but what's coming. Now I'm starting to act as though this is a police state. Right. I'm living my life in a police state. And how many people in America that wanted to gather, okay, like Black Lives Matter did without the violence, and for the summer burnt us down, and we're not allowed to. There's the ramifications at so many levels of freedom and liberty and the right of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, they've been stripped away, eroded, holes shot in them left and right. And any good lawyer knows what this means. This means you don't have a republic if you don't have the rule of law. Yeah. And you don't have the rule of law if you have precedent set on many fronts from any kind of law. Zoning law problems, immigration law problems. You keep breaking all the federal laws at the state level. This is what you'll see, no matter what. You'll see Biden had died one day from a red state. That's what's going to happen.
But Joe, this Soros-backed DA, again, who took it upon himself to do this, with all the crime going on in New York, with violent people that they have to deal with, and even, from carjackings to muggings to... I mean, you name it in New York City. And this guy is going after Trump. I mean, this is when I talk
They
about
have they have nothing. This is the establishment. This is Obama. This is Biden. This is a complete left wing and really wokeism in corporate America. This is a whole enchilada wanting him to go away because listen, he's a truth teller. Like it or not, the way he tells it or not, he's going to get out there. He's going to hit it, and they want this to go away. They are trying. If they could take out Donald Trump, in their mind, they have taken out all opposition, like Spartacus. Take him out, and that'll be it. It'll be gone. There'll be nobody left that will have the strength to actually oppose them. And that's why this is so big.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute, because since all this news broke, Donald Trump in the Republican primary, his numbers are skyrocketing, Joe Visconti. I mean, again, DeSantis hasn't announced in the race yet. I don't want to get into that too much, but plug in anybody. I mean, Trump is up by 30 points and gaining ground. I mean, I looked in New Hampshire. What do my numbers tell me? He's even up in New Hampshire about 21 points. But Joe, despite those numbers, and despite what you hear the media talking about, and we've talked about it on the show before, about how independents are against him 70-30, there is a growing fear among Democrats that this whole ploy of theirs is backfiring, and Trump is actually getting stronger with the American people. 55% of which said there's no way a president should be a former president should be indicted for something like this. Even knowing
there's no victim, it's a victimless crime, as you know.
Right.
This is a 200,000 person vote, 200,000 votes in maybe 6 swing states. That's what this is. And after all the stuff that went down, shenanigans, let's call it that, in 2020, after all the shenanigans that may have been, only like Hillary Clinton, lost by 45, 50,000. This is with Trump. So we are on a very razor edge. And right now, what the Democrats did is they put the criminal justice system on the ballot.
Yeah.
That's what they just did.
Yeah.
Cut their own throats because they got nowhere to go. They can't. The country's going down. Where the dollar, we're going to talk about it in the next segment, is they're dropping $1. Our country's ready to collapse. The trading. This is all Biden 2.5 years dismantling what Obama didn't finish. This is the truth.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of truth to that, and it's not just what's happening with Trump. Folks, believe it or not, there are a couple really important elections going on in our country today. Joe, let's touch base on those, and we'll come back to Trump in a minute. But in Chicago, you and I, how many shows did you and I talk about what was going on in Chicago? Well, there's a mayor's race. They're actually voting today. When they had the election, when Lori Lightfoot was defeated a couple months back, the 2 survivors were Paul Vials, who he supports the police, and he's got a narrow lead over a guy named Brandon Johnson, who is publicly defund the police. Joe, I know we don't talk local politics here, but this is a big race. Any thoughts on what's happening in Chicago today?
Well, I think Chicago may run late with the people. There's a lot of minorities that are under the gun for money and whatnot in the blue cities like that. So they're probably later to wake up to certain things that we've all in suburbia have woken up to, after 2 years of COVID, the lockdowns, the nonsense, the BS, the lies, everywhere we turn, the transgender. This whole thing has been coming like wave after wave of tidal waves after everybody. And people have been looking at that, trying to look the other way. You just can't look the other way because they're asking themselves, what's next? Now it's the safety of their lives, and it is not going away. So this is another reason Democrats are looking to throw mud anywhere to get it away from the issues. Right. It's like a family fight or a fight with your wife or whatever. When you have a heated fight, you don't want to. Well, you did this 10 years ago, and you did that. Let's talk about right now. It isn't about right now. It's about the collective all the way back. And those things haven't been resolved. No matter how much tax dollars have been paid, the country has not resolved so many of its troubles that it paid for to resolve, but the world wouldn't let them be resolved. So they're all coming up and regurgitating one after the other, any issue, any city, you name it. And I think this is like catharsis. This has got to come up. It's got to come up in America.
Well, for speaking about Chicago, we on this show clearly support Mr. Vilas because we support the police. And for the sake of the city of Chicago, which is our second or third largest city in the country, very important city, we do not need someone, a defund the police guy. And supposedly in that race, people over the age of 45 are breaking for Vilas. People under the age of 45 are breaking for Johnson. Let me explain that one.
Yeah.
I can't. Now, let's talk about this too, though. In Wisconsin, Joe, a Soros-backed leftist is running against a conservative Supreme Court Justice, Dan Kelly, and $42 million spent in this race, Joe. And, the Democratic Party, they've actually spent $6 million more. But they are framing this, Joe, as an existential threat to the Democratic Party, meaning Wisconsin will codify abortion. We don't know if that's true. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. There are going to be redistricting drawn in Wisconsin that could flip congressional seats. And there could be rulings, the Democrats are telling their supporters this, affecting the 2024 election. Wisconsin's going to be a razor-thin state. Joe, $42 million on a state Supreme Court race in Wisconsin?
Yeah. Well, it's lawfare. We're dealing with lawfare. And the Democrats are going to be putting their money everywhere they can to continue to stack, like in Israel, to stack the judiciary with radical lefties that are godless. And when there is no God, they get to play God. And that's purely what it is. Judges who now can become God. It's true. And this is what they're doing. They have nowhere to go. They have no policies. They have nothing that's brings prosperity and helpfulness and goodness. That's it.
Joe, are these two elections a referendum on where we are in the country right now on crime and all these other issues? Is it going to be viewed, if Dan Kelly wins, as a tilt to the right, and Paul Vials, even though he's a Democrat, as a tilt to the right, supporting the police if he wins tonight?
Yeah, I think there is a correction going on. And again, don't forget the voter turnout, the voter ballots, even if they're not corrupted. You have a lot of people that didn't vote in the inner cities for a lot of years because they don't trust government. I don't blame them now anyway. But a lot of people didn't, left or right of the aisle, and they are. And it's an increase in turnout. But this is something I want to interject here real quick. And I've said it before on your show. It's not the government's job to turn out elections, to increase voter participation, unless you want them all brainwashed. No, you stay out of it. If someone wants to stay home because they don't like you, Mark, and they don't like me and they don't want to vote, you let them go home. Don't drive it home and spend money to guilt them to come out and vote for things that they don't want, if that's the case. And so we have had our government interfere in our elections more and more just by putting your hand on the scale for turnout. So no matter what occurs, I just think we're going to look back in 10 years from now, maybe 15, and go, what happened then? Wow. Like an episode, on your, you get fired from a job or something happened on your resume. Whoa, what happened here? Well, my father died and I lost my dog or whatever. I had a little problem for that 2-year period,
It's been just a nightmare couple of years under Biden.
It's nuts. Since Trump stepped on, and he had to step on, because what we were going to get, Bush or Clinton, what were we going to get? Think about it.
Well, let me ask you this while you're bringing that up. And let's talk about Trump and Biden. Okay, right now, if Trump's not the odds-on favorite to the Republican nomination, I don't know statistics, but he clearly is the odds-on favorite right now. That doesn't mean he's going to win it, because primaries, you start in Iowa, then New Hampshire, South Carolina. We'll get into that in future shows. But if it is Trump and Biden's sitting here with a steady, 43, 44% approval rating, 54% negative. He's 10 points upside down. Joe, that number fluctuates a little bit. Sometimes he goes down to like 38, 39, max 45. He's in the low 40s. So there's been talk about a no labels party. Democrats are fighting it tooth and nail everywhere because they believe it'll split votes away from Democrats. Joe, it's way, way, way too early, but Biden and Trump in polling, if it is them again, there's only a 2-point difference there. This far out from November of 2020.
My gut has been telling me since. Sometimes I look at his faces. I knew Biden would be president. I didn't know this cycle, but I knew he was. But those glasses that he wears and a whole bit, he's just got that stupid Joe thing. And I can tell you, your governor of California will probably be the next president. I see him stepping on the stage after a lot of stuff that goes down. Maybe Trump doesn't run, but I believe he does run. And if he does run, he's going to have a hard time against the California governor. No one's looking at that. Kamala's
Well,
gone.
you think Newsom?
I think Newsom is going to
challenge
step.
Biden? You think he's going to challenge
I don't think Biden's going to run. I really don't. At the end of the day, I doubt he's going to run. My gut tells me it's Newsom. I look at his hair. You know him better than I.
Yeah.
I'm from the East Coast, but I look at him. Listen, it's not what I like, but I can see the general public. Because if they could swallow Biden, they could swallow anything on the left. And that guy's a lot better than Biden.
There's no doubt about it.
He's
absolutely,
fresh. Nobody knows who is. You look for Biden not to run. Or if he does think he's going to run, he decides to step down in 6 months or whatever. Newsom steps in. They have nobody else. Newsom, I believe, is the only one who could get by everybody. And as far as DeSantis, we'll talk about that another time. But I think Trump stays in it. But, we didn't talk about one thing on the list, and that would be, that is Georgia. I mean, I got to think that this first arrest is just the thing they want to set the stage with so they can pitch Georgia next.
Yeah, George is out there, and you've got the federal prosecutor out there. I mean,
the prosecutor, he'll come in 6 months, but right now, I think in another month, less than a month, you'll see Georgia make a move. And so this here sets a precedent. It builds the momentum against Trump. Then he hit him with Georgia. They can keep regurgitating everything that they were involved with. This is all they've got to go back and how it was slighted at this time. And just like I said, personal relationships, you're getting divorced. You're never going to be able to patch it up. Yeah. And this is that's all they have. They expect it. They did this in New York because they could.
Yeah.
And think about that, because like Al Gore renting a Lincoln bedroom years ago, when he was asked why, how could he said there was no governing authority. He said he couldn't. There's no governing authority anymore. It says any of this stuff can be stopped. Nobody could stop what happened today. This guy could do what he wants.
Well, I'll tell you who could stop it, though, and he might, is the federal judge, or is it not federal judge? It's a state judge who's going to have the case. I saw something, I haven't verified if it's true or not, but supposedly the state judge's daughter, worked in the Biden campaign. I don't know. I'm not going to. That's not a blanket statement, folks. We still have to verify it's correct, but I saw some news outlets reporting that. But the judge does have the power to look at this and say this case is so weak. Joe, when the Washington Post, certainly not a conservative bastion, says this, I think the Post is just egging to say this is not a good case, get rid of it. The Georgia case may be a legit case. We don't know yet. We don't know. At the Trump documents, I can't see anything coming of that. I really don't, because that, like I've said in the show many times, it's like offsetting penalties in a football game. Personal foul on Biden, personal foul on Trump, or offsetting, nothing's going to happen. Georgia's a different animal, though. Again, it's brought in the city of Atlanta, predominantly Democrat, and that could be there. We don't want to jump ahead.
I think that's going to happen. That's batter up. That's in the bench right now, warming up. And it's just they've been laying this out for a couple of years. It's going to happen. But what it's going to do is it's really going to weaken the judicial system. People want to know when they have an argument or a problem, they can get fairness from the police to the courts to the law, so they can go back home like King Solomon and stuff. You're getting a break. This is why they brought in instant replay with baseball and football. People were tired of getting ripped off by corrupt referees. I mean, the Americans want fairness. Number one, they don't mind paying, but they don't want to be ripped off by corrupt judges or corrupt or paid off referees like the old days and fixing the World Series. No, really, that's Americana. That's what they want. That's why this is so troubling for our country.
Well, speaking of our country, let's talk a little. We'll close it out with some economic news here, Joe. Jamie Dimon, CEO of J.P. Morgan Chase, a behemoth bank now, he said the banking crisis is not over, and yet there's more pain ahead. And there's various people on Wall Street, strategists, etc., that says the country is heading into a recession. The question is it going to be soft landing or a hard landing? Joe, it's hard to have a recession when you're at 3.6 or 3.7 unemployment, but these banking problems are going to tighten lending standards. What say you?
Well, I'll always invest in Bank on America, no matter how upset I get at a lot of things as you do. We see watching things, the small things that happen, but there'll always be the bailouts. There'll always be the correction. Government will always step in, which keeps causing more inflation. But our problems are I believe they're more international with all these countries buying and trading now up beyond the dollar. I think that's our problem. because now we don't have the dollar strong, and we're going to go through a transition. You talk about a reset. We're going to go through an economic financial reset, which is international, and that would make me more afraid than anything domestically. Americans are going to always consume. I was at the mall the other day, always consuming, always buying, loading up the credit cards, doing what they got. We are the consumers. You got to bank on the consumption no matter what. And people are more optimistic because they're coming out of 2 years of being locked down. They'll pay to get out of this. If you can pay to get out of the Red Sox game is over, jump in a cab and get out of there quick. You don't want to walk 2 miles to the car. There's a lot of the optimism about being free and living right now. So I would say that, smarter men than me in Wall Street will say one thing, but I think we're going to be okay. Housing market, interest rates for housing, that's the kicker right there. They can't mess that up. If they mess that up right now, the building that's going on in this country is insane. Manhattan, I couldn't believe what I saw this weekend. I drove and walked everywhere. They're putting skyscrapers up everywhere.
Yeah, no, and office vacancies in New York are down, or vacancies are up 38%. Listen, oil's back above $80. The Saudis and, OPEC Plus getting together, basically snubbing the Biden administration. They thought they had a deal where they were going to buy Saudi oil to replenish the strategic petroleum reserve when oil was under $70 a barrel. Now, Joe, it's back above 80, and the Saudis and OPEC Plus are none too happy about it. Another example of a poor energy policy by the Biden administration.
We'll hit 105. We'll hit 105 a barrel by Memorial Day. That's the game. That's the game that's always been played. But the subsidies for the federal government and the state governments and local municipalities for energy, and the COVID brought in a lot of things people don't talk about. They brought in a lot of safety net structure that was never there. We had a lot of safety net in America, but a lot more layers has been brought in because of emergency conditions. That's going to help buffer transition through whatever we're going through. But listen, the credit card companies, the banks, they don't want people to miss their payments. They want to keep the monster going on. All right. So have faith and invest that we'll be okay. But it's going to be uncomfortable, as it usually is for the middle class.
Well, 5,000 GM workers just announced they're taking buyouts from the company. The company's going to take $1 billion charge. And you had a lot of layoffs in Silicon Valley, but those people will get jobs. They have engineering degrees, most of them.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a mixed bag. It really is. Interest rates have gone up. Credit card rates are through the roof. Forget about that. But Joe, I go back to what I said. I have a hard time seeing recession with 3.7 unemployment. But a lot of smart people are saying it's going to happen, and some of them are saying it's not going to be a soft landing. It's going to be a hard landing. So.
Yeah, I don't think so. I think contrary to what it all looks like, I just think the optimism, and people are fed up after 2 years of being locked down. The general public isn't going to allow it. They're not going to, because a recession is a lockdown, and they're not getting locked down again.
But sort of the last couple of years, people have sort of been out doing what they wanted to do. Airlines are full, hotels. I mean, certain segments of the economy are doing really well. But Joe, have you checked food prices lately? Man, it is still expensive every time.
You can't afford anything. You can't. People just keep paying. Go to Whole Foods anywhere. I watched a guy in New York. A bunch of people are still wearing masks in Manhattan. Not everywhere, but a lot of them. And the minute you see them, because I don't see them around here in Connecticut, I get like a reflex. Because you go, when you see the mask, you remember what they did to you. That kind of thing. What they did to everybody. Or what happened. Let's just call it what happened. All right. And nobody wants that. And
No.
But I'll have faith that we will have high interest rates to kingdom come. We'll have all types of issues that we're going to get upset about: utility costs, food costs. What that's doing is it's driving people into more people living with their parents, more people, condominiums, scaling your lives back, and almost like getting like China, where people don't have anything.
Well, I mean, you mentioned the American consumer again. For a lot of reasons, a lot of people on Wall Street thought there were going to be rate cuts this year. I think there's zero chance of that happening. I mean, not zero, but a minimal chance of that happening. And Powell's come out and pretty much said it. Hey, we got 2 minutes left. Let me shift internationally real quick. Finland officially in NATO. Last story, but that is a big deal, Joe, that NATO is now adding a new member, Finland, which borders Russia. The conflict in Ukraine is not going well for the Russians. There's death and destruction. Russians have lost, over 160,000 soldiers. We don't know how many Ukraine has, but we know it's been painful. The Russians continuing to hit civilian targets. The war atrocities committed by Russia. Joe, close it out. You got a minute left to talk about Finland and the war.
Well, don't underestimate Putin. That's all I would say. Don't underestimate him. And unless there's a coup inside, or he dies, or something occurs with his cancer, or whatever he has, I think that the European Union in the summer months, I think this is the summer where it'll get sorted out. However it goes down, there'll be, if in that peace talks, territorial cuts. There is a presidential election coming up towards the end of the year. You start to really kick it off here in America. Biden doesn't want to look at this stuff. He just can't keep making. If it's not Biden, it's your man from California. You can't keep making Putin the boogeyman.
Yeah,
it's not gonna. It's because he's now with China. So China is really going to call the shots from here on out. And if you think energy is expensive in Europe now.
Yeah.
So I think China stepping up said something. It's like the bully comes over, and then somebody bigger that wants to talk his bully down. And I think the back channels will straighten this out. It has to be. It can't go on for 5 years. There's too many people dying that live in Ukraine.
Yeah.
And it's a shame, but
yeah.
I don't think we'll ever realize or understand just all the reasons that it happened, no matter what we're
Closing comment, Joe. Give me your prediction. What happens with this Trump situation? How it sorts itself out? Indictment. Judge throws it out. Case never.
Yeah, he just. I just got a text message. Trump just walked out of the courthouse with Boris Epstein.
Oh, okay.
Who's been on our show before, and they just walked out. And I think you can't get a fair trial if it's not dismissed, then they're going to actually have a trial, and the jury won't listen. If they do have this, a jury will do whatever they want in Washington, D.C. or Manhattan. So this all ends up at the U.S. Supreme Court at one point, or it gets dismissed. But who would dismiss it? What judge or group of judges in Manhattan will dismiss it? And I think Dershowitz said it. No, yeah, he did. He said, I defended the president, and I've been Dershowitzed. Anybody who tries to dismiss this, he said in an article today, will be Dershowitzed. You have no customers, you have no friends, you have nothing. You're cut off from the world because you defended the president. And that's what will happen. So they won't move it out of Manhattan. They won't dismiss it. They're going to run this thing all the way up. So the news cycle shows he's in court for 6-8 months while Georgia kicks in, and they just keep pile on everyday news reports.
And
Russia.
And you know what?
Just like Russia. Just like Russia.
If that happens, then he will become stronger, and we'll have this case hanging over us in the 2024 election.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
No question.
Absolutely. This is what they want. They got nothing else. They're doing it because they can.
They're doing it because they can. Well, you said the operative piece earlier. You show me the man, I'll show you the crime. Good point, Joe. Hey, Joe, great analysis as always. Happy to have you with us today. And folks, I was serious. Joe was literally reporting on the ground on January 6th on Schaftlein Report. And I told him before the show, I'm glad you're not in New York today. Because all he was doing, folks, was reporting. That's it. He had a microphone interviewing people. Joe, thanks again. I'll see you soon. And we wish the best for President Trump. Folks, we'll be back on Thursday. We cut through all the propaganda, all the BS. We'll have more on this Trump story then. Thanks for viewing and listening. We'll see you on Thursday. Have a good evening.